Hello, everybody, wherever you are at the world. I don't know whether it's good evening or good afternoon, but I bless you all for being here and thank you for coming to my session. Hello. I see many people that I know. That's fantastic. That's great. I'm so happy to see you. It gives me immediately the feeling of connection, which is exactly my subject for today. So my subject for today is encounter as healing connection, which means a transformational healing connection. And I will put the accent on the bridge, the philosophical bridge between Martin Buber and Viktor Frankl. Listen to the words of Martin Buber in his autobiography. A man came to me one day, he says, and for consultation. And I was listening to him, and I was surely polite as always. But I forgot to be present. In his words, he says, I forgot to guess the questions that he never asked. Listen to these words. I forgot, he says, to listen to the questions he never asked. After some time, he heard from the friends of that person that person had come for him for a special reason. And in between the lines, you understand that that person was not alive anymore. He probably committed suicide. And then Buber goes on to say, a man always comes for you at a certain time on a certain day for a reason. And he wants to know that there is still meaning. Here, the word meaning. The word meaning immediately connects us to the work of Viktor Frankl. Okay? So my aim in this presentation is to create an interplay, sort of philosophical dialogue, explorative dialogue between the two thinkers. And in order to decipher the deep structure of this unique phenomenon in human experience, this unique phenomenon that is so central to Viktor Frankl, logophilosophy as well as logotherapy. And I will relate in both philosophers to both the philosophical perspective on life. The logophilosophy of Viktor Frankl is his philosophy of life as well as a concept of man. And with Martin Buber, he was more of a philosopher, but at the same time, he was not a therapist, but he was a counselor that many people came to look for advice from him. Okay, so actually, he acted like a psychotherapist, and therefore he told that story. So remember that word meaning. And by this explorative dialogue that I will create between the two of them, my aim is to let the deep structure of this phenomenon reveal itself in a truly phenomenological way, like we know in pure phenomenology. So let us now delve right into my presentation, and let's start. Okay, so here we are. We have, again, our subject for today, encounter as healing connection, the philosophical bridge between Buber and Frankl. Look at the picture of both of them, which is incredible. They are both looking as if they are thinking. It reminds to me very much the statue, the very well statue of the thinking man by Rodin in Paris. And they are both kind of looking into the mystery of life, right? It's incredible. So let us begin with the presentation. first of all, I wanted to let you in just to the kind of background which is underlying this whole presentation, to give us the context of this comparative discussion that we have. Okay, so both thinkers belong to religious existentialism, and throughout the philosophy of existentialism in general, but especially in religious existentialism, there is a dichotomy that runs like a thread all the time between consciousness, or if you want, man, and objects which are dead, okay? And man or consciousness is characterized by freedom of choice, and of course responsibility that goes with it. And the objects are characterized by being deterministic. They determine each other and they are dead. They don't have any way to change. And then it runs into another dichotomy that runs through the whole existential philosophy, and that is two different modes of standing in the world, of being in the world. The first is the authentic way, and the other is the inauthentic way, okay? And then we come to our most important subject of today. So I made this table so that you understand the context of it. That is the distinction between the I and thou relationship. And I will, in a moment, explain exactly what that means. And the I-it relationship, what Frankl calls, what Buber calls. We will, in a minute, understand exactly what it is, although it is very well known. And just to have the philosophical parallel to it, I put down that for Frankl, the authentic way would be meaningful living, and the inauthentic way would be, of course, the existential value, the vacuum that we all know, right? So we go on now. So now I promised you that I will explain exactly what the difference between the I-it and the I-thou is, okay? So the I-it, stands for a relationship when you do reification to the other person. You objectify the other person. You don't really treat him like a real human being, okay? You see the symbol of the statue there that is broken, the heart is broken. It's like you make the other person dead, like an object. And in our world today of alienation and of objectification, that we do not have real relationships of really meeting the other person, that is very extremely important. And so what you do in the I-it relation, you are reducing the other person into a mere means to an end. And that, of course, resonates exactly on what Viktor Frankl says, and we will see further on. Now, in opposition to it, the I-thou relationship, it is an affinity that is created by taking off the masks which we always wear in our everyday life consciousness, and we come to an authentic and intimate communication with one another when a new space is opening for us for unity and wholeness, when every person can see the other person worth and value and uniqueness as well. Okay, so now we go on. Buber actually talks about this I-thou relation in three axes, in three spheres of life. The first is man to man, like I have explained before. When you treat a person in an I-thou relationship, you take off the masks and you are really, truly authentic with him and truly open with that person. It can happen, of course, in a safe place, It can happen with a rabbi or a mentor or a pastor or a therapist or just a very good friend. And then you really are open to take off the masks that you're always wearing and just be open with your heart. And that is always a possibility. Now, I must tell you that Martin Buber lost contact with his mother when he was 4 years old. His parents got divorced and he lost contact. His mother disappeared from his life. And that came to him as a mission for his life to develop this philosophy of communication, of philosophy of meeting, because he later on in his life, he coined the word miscounter and mismeeting when you cannot really meet the other person. And when his mother came to visit him when he was already married with children, he says in his autobiography, which is called Encounter, I could not look at the beautiful blue eyes that my mother had because she had left me at the age of 4. So you can understand that Buber had become a wounded healer, and that's why he's not only a philosopher. Now I move to man and nature to have the I-thou relationship. It's not only with people, but it's also with a tree. He describes a beautiful example when he meets a tree. And, a botanist or any person can look at the tree from the outside and just analyze it from the outside like a botanist. But he suddenly felt a total unity with that tree. He just became one with that tree. And another beautiful example that he told from his autobiography is that as his parents got divorced, he grew up with his grandfather and grandmother. And his grandfather had a ranch. And he used to come and feed the horses there. And listen to this beautiful story. He used to come every day to feed the horses. And just one day, when he fed a horse, he forgot to be present, just like with that person that he told us. He forgot to be present and to give love to that horse. He just gave the food to that horse. And he says, these are his exact words, the horse was angry. And the next day, when he came to feed the horses, that horse, even though Buber tried to be present and give him the food, the horse would, and he caressed the head of this horse, the horse would not raise his head. So these are beautiful stories. And with the tree, it also reminds us immediately of the story that Frankl tells. Remember when he says about that woman who was lying in his hospital, looking through the window and talking to a tree. And first he thought she was hallucinating. So he came to her and he said, well, does the tree answer to you? And she said, yes, of course. And he said, what does he say? And the tree said, and the woman said, it said, I am life. I am eternal life. So that resonates very beautiful. It's a very beautiful story that I'm sure all of you know. And the third relationship of the I and thou is man to God, and that is the most important of all. And I guess you probably know that. And what is important is that Buber says that all arrows of the relationship of I thou unite in the eternal thou, which is God. Now, this philosophy of Buber is called encounter through meeting. Sometimes it is also called the philosophy of communication. And look at the first quote. He says, in the beginning, there was connection. I was very astounded to see it because it is so beautiful. You know, the New Testament says, in the beginning, there was the Word. And sometimes it is translated as, in the beginning, there was the Logos, which relates, of course, to Frankl's philosophy. Although Frankl chose the meaning of meaning for logos rather than the word, but it still, resonates on each other. So in the beginning was connection. By that he means that there is a primacy of the wish to connect before I see the object or the subject near me. The thou is, so to speak, embedded in me before the relationship. So that means that even the baby first has this wish to connect and then sees the mother or the beautiful hand that he wants to touch or to grab, okay? And I must tell you a very quick story here, that when Dr. Teria Chantal, when she made Aliyah to Israel, had her first granddaughter, we were teaching all together with Mr. Gidon Milul and his late wife at Gordon College in Haifa. And when she had this first grandchild, she brought a picture of that baby, and we saw that look on the face of the baby who is striving for connection. And Teria Chantal always says, meaning means connection. And I love that idea. And in brackets, I tell you that I have urged her many times to write an article about it because Frankl does not stress that idea. So I go on. And what Buber is stressing here, that the I and thou is actually embedded in an energetic field that is prior to the two entities that are engaging in the encounter. I will repeat that because that is extremely important. There is an energetic field that is encompassing the I and thou and actually all the universe, all existence, and that energetic field is prior to the two entities who are engaging in the encounter. And that he calls sometimes the in-betweenness. And that in-betweenness is also a very important category in his philosophy and counseling way of looking at life. And that he means that this in-betweenness, it opens us to a larger sphere of meaning and purpose in life. In the field present, he uses these words to denote that you are fully present, unlike what he told when he was forgetting to be present. Of course, it always happens in the here and now. So I come to, that was the encounter through meeting. I come to Frankl now. As I promised you, I'm doing a kind of explorative dialogue between the two thinkers. So from Frankl, as you all know, in his dimensional ontology, he stresses the point that man is spirit. So that means we have a mind and we have a body, but man is spirit. It's a question of being. It's ontological. So he also repeats the same idea that only in full presence, one with one's whole being, of course, can one grasp the full potentiality of the meaning of the moment. As you all know, I'm sure, the meaning of the moment is always derived from ultimate meaning, but each moment has its own potentiality of meaning. And if you fail to be present, that moment has gone. He always repeats that. That moment is gone forever. Your next chance is the next moment to be present and get the full potentiality of the of that moment. Now, as you all know, Frankl stresses very much the notion of self-transcendence. And by saying that the self-transcendent quality of human existence, he means to remind us that man is always reaching out beyond himself. Yes, like you see in the picture here. That means to another human being or to another mission that is greater than himself. And therefore, I must say that in this particular point, he says something which sounds on the surface of it against the philosophy and psychology of Martin Buber, because he stresses the point that encounter transcends itself towards the logos. That means that it's not enough the relationship of I and thou, but it is that both parties who are meeting, they both are in self-transcending towards meaning, towards the dimension of meaning, towards the logos, towards transcendence, if you want, or towards the divine. So he means by that the dialogue can never be whole without the dimension of meaning entering by both parties transcending themselves. So the I-thou relation can never be regarded as a closed system. It is an open system. Just like any person, every person is an open system, like we all know from dimensional ontology. We are an open system in terms of being able to reflect upon ourselves. We are an open system in the way that we are open to change always. And we are not determined by anything. We always have a freedom of choice, despite of circumstances, right? But here it is in the context of encounter, okay, between two people. And so, again, I stress the point that he says encounter transcends itself towards the logos. So in my next slide, I ask, is there a real gap between the two views? Because on the surface of it, it sounds as if Frankl is, in a way, suggesting that Martin Buber has not gone far enough with his I-thou relation. Actually, he gives credit mainly to Martin Buber, but also to Biswanger, who was at the same time, he was a psychiatrist and a counselor, and also to Moreno, who was at the same time, and they all used the category of I and thou. He gives credit to Buber for that, but nevertheless, he says that still you have to transcend towards the logos, as I have explained. But, well, I have given a lot of thought to it, and then I saw that actually I would like to suggest to you that they both actually point to the same direction, the importance of the spiritual in the encounter, the dimension that opens us to transcend our isolated selves. Because when Frankl talks about self-transcendence, he actually talks about moving from the realm of the psyche to the realm of the spirit. If you remember all the three ways of finding meaning in life, yes, they all have to do with self-transcendence, of course. And when Buber talks about the encounter, and then what I said before, that all arrows of the I and thou unite in the eternal thou, which is God, he even goes on to say, and listen well, this is a very important point here, that every person as a thou is a gateway to the eternal thou. So if every person is a gateway to the eternal thou, that means that there is no difference really between what Frankl is saying and what Buber is saying, because they both are putting the stress on the importance of the spiritual dimension in the encounter. So here I say more in detail what Frankl is saying. He says, our inherent connectedness to the divine, that is the source of our will to meaning, and actually even to our will to ultimate meaning. You know that Frankl doesn't talk much about the notion of God in his books, apart from the book The Unconscious God or the Man's Search for Ultimate Meaning. But you know that Frankl died with this book on his chest. And he said actually that was the most important book that he has written. And I find it to be true. It's really the most, in my mind, the deepest of his writings. Now, he also says, Viktor Frankl, that following Carl Buhler's theory of language, Carl Buhler had a threefold theory of language. The first is the function of expression, when I just want to express myself. The second is of dialogue between two people. And the third is that I always talk about something. When I talk, when two people are talking between themselves, they always talk about something. So this is the aboutness of language. This is the third category. And then Frankl goes on to say that the ideal relation has God as its intentional referent. I want to remind all of us, and especially if there are philosophers in this audience, that Husserl, who is regarded to be the father of phenomenology, which of course influenced Frankl, he took the word intentionality, the term intentionality, from his teacher, who was Brentano, and that is a very main notion in phenomenology, that consciousness is always intending towards something. And here, Frankl is already using the term that Max Scheler, by whom he was extremely influenced when he listened to his lectures in Vienna, who is using this term intentional referent. So I repeat, what Frankl is saying here is the I-thou relation has God as its intentional referent. So that means that he is really very close to what Buber is saying when he says that every thou is a gateway to the eternal thou. Now, I put here some other utterings of Viktor Frankl that will show to you that although he, on the surface of it, he criticized Martin Buber, and he even tells somewhere that he met Buber and he told it to him, and in the end Buber agreed with him. But thinking very deeply about this notion of encounter, I found that there is actually no difference between the two views. This is my contention that I offer to you. So the utterings that I want you to hear here is that Frankl says behind conscience, as the organ of meaning, like we all know, stands the thou God. And also he says the noetic dimension as affinity between, he uses really the terminology of Buber here, between the immanent I and the transcendent thou. So that means between me and God. Okay? I hope this is understood, because this is real deep stuff. So I go on. Now both thinkers talk about encounter that goes much deeper than just techniques. Of course, Frankl, as we know, offers us 3 techniques, by which the Socratic dialogue is the most important. But nevertheless, they both say that far more than technique, the most important thing is the personal relationship, and that personal relationship is exactly what heals the other person. Okay, so Frankl is actually saying psychotherapy is more than technique, it is an art. And how right he is. I think the counselors and the therapists between us will know it very well from experience. And he also goes on to say also that more than psychotherapy is more than science, more than exact science, of course, because it is a wisdom. And he gives a very beautiful example that I'm sure that at least part of you know, or many of you know, of that lady who had phoned him at 3:00 at night, and she wanted to commit suicide. And he answered her, and he was giving all the arguments to her why she should not do that. And he ended up the conversation by asking her, begging to her, to wait at least until the morning and come to see him. And that woman indeed came to see him in the morning, and she said, "Doctor, it is not your arguments that convinced me not to do it, but it was the very fact that you agreed to talk with me at 3:00 in the morning, and that convinced me." So what Frankl is saying, that approaching the human being in terms of dynamics, it means manipulating them, and they will feel it. And approaching them in terms of techniques, it means reifying them, like reification, what we saw before, that you treat them like an object. And he says, mistaking human beings as machines to be repaired, then you have missed their hearts. Because, as I said before, they will feel it, yeah? And Buber says things which are very, very similar. He talks about the art of listening, of real listening. Like, remember my first story that he said I was polite, I was kind of listening to that man, but I forgot to guess what his unasked questions were, and that person ended up committing suicide. So the art of real listening, you know, real therapists have a third ear, not only in logotherapy, but always a third ear, that you hear what is behind what the person is really saying to you. So one can open his heart and the art of others to the call of life and creation, but not by technique, he says, just like Frankl, but by appealing to the creator to be like him, that we want to resemble our creator in the togetherness of souls. That means on the togetherness of the real encounter, of the real meeting. Okay, so I go on. And here I describe what comes out of what I've said until now. What does it mean to be in authentic relationship? So not just to be in superficial relationship, psyche to psyche, but to be in relationship on the spiritual level of self-transcendence, right? Then you have that possibility. You can also have the possibility of inauthenticity, like I started in the background slide in the beginning. You can always stay in the possibility of what I call, and Frankl also call, reductionism, because when you reduce the human being from 3-dimensional being to 2-dimensional being, you miss the spiritual in him, which it makes the person a whole person. You miss the true essence of the human being. You miss his wholeness. So I remind us all that Frankl talks about logotherapy as a therapy of love. And he says, like you probably all know, man is redeemed in and through love. And look, listen to the very beautiful quote that Lucas is saying, you know, the successor, the wonderful successor of Frankl. She says, a friend is one who knows the melody of your heart. Logotherapy is such a friend. How beautiful, how inspirational. And look, listen to what Buber is saying, so similar. He talks about the exchange of hearts. And he keeps saying, all real living is meeting. And also he says that when self is exposed to self, that means, again, that we are not just on our psyche level. When the real self, our authentic self, is exposed to the authentic self of the other person, then all encapsulation means that we are closed in ourselves, in our illusionary belief that we are separate, actually. That is what I call reductionism, that we forget who we truly are. We are spirit, and when we forget that, we fall into identifying, or rather misidentifying, with our psychological level, and we think we are separate. I am now talking about Viktor Frankl, but that applies exactly also to Buber when he talks about the falling away of the encapsulation. And then, and only then, does a transformed, healed relationship open to otherness. How beautiful. And then he goes on to say the real conversation occurs as a moment of grace. Indeed, it suddenly opens that space of unity and wholeness, opens between the I and the thou as a moment of grace. He actually says that a world without the relation of I-it is not possible, because sometimes, you know, you go on a bus, you pay the driver, you have not even seen the person that is there, and you go on. Of course, we have to function sometimes also on that level of the I-it. But he says, if a person is missing to live on the I-thou, then he is not a person. Again, how beautiful. So we have exactly the same idea that we encountered before, that affinity always happens only in the present. It can never happen in the past. Only objects, like I said in the background slide, only objects live in the past, okay? So I go on. And now, as I promised before, that throughout our discussion, which is a kind of a dialogical interaction between the two thinkers, which I have created, a kind of interplay between them, creative interplay between them, we have come to reveal, or let us say that a phenomenology of encounter has revealed itself to us, like always happens in phenomenology, that what happens is the phenomenon just reveals itself to us in terms of its deep structures. So I have come to discover some constituent principles of what it means encounter as healing connection. The first one is the courage and the willingness to engage in full presence and to even cross the threshold of fear, because we always are afraid to take off our masks. We're afraid to be completely open, of course, only in a safe place, but still, Buber even describes therapists who are afraid to take their masks because they are afraid to cross over that threshold of the fear to be totally authentic. And I remind you that Frankl says that the aim of logotherapy is to make our authentic self conscious of itself. Now, the second point I put here is an extremely important point, that this encounter that we are talking about is such a central notion in Frankl's philosophy, and through this explorative comparison between the two, we discover actually that the ideal encounter is an ontological relationship. It's not just a psychological relationship. I hope you can be with me on this one. I hope you can understand what it means by it, because it's actually a relationship of being. It's not just a relationship on the psychological level, like I love this and I hate that, or I am attracted to this and I don't want that in my life, or I avoid pain and I just want pleasure in my life. It's an ontological relationship. It's a relationship of being. And it's very easy to see on Frankl's logophilosophy and logotherapy. It is a relationship of noos to noos, yes, of spirit to spirit, our dimension of meaning to the other person's dimension of meaning. And with Buber, it is called more soul to soul. And the last point here, I called it via negativa, because, you know, the negative way, like it's a term that is taken from the phenomenology of religion, maybe mainly, that actually we are not talking about creating bridges of connection, but we are recreating the bridge that was always there from the beginning, because the unity and the wholeness has always been there, only we forgot this unity and wholeness of ourselves and of the other and of the whole universe, actually. So we have forgotten the original or the primal unity of the whole universe and of ourselves together. And only by taking the masks off of that, with that courage that I talked about, we are removing the veil of separateness. And how do we remove that? We remove the veil of our forgetfulness of who we truly are. Okay? So now I come to the next one, which I deciphered in this phenomenology of encounter that I have, so to speak, was revealed to me throughout this explorative interplay between the thinkers. So the characteristics of this is wholeness and unity, like we already talked about. And then that it is unmediated by thought. It doesn't happen by thinking about it. It happens by experience. And we said it happens by a moment of grace, or it happens at the moment of two parties transcending themselves. It never happens by thinking about it. And you know very well the saying of Frankl when he talks about logos is deeper than logic, of course. And then he always likes to quote Pascal that the heart has its reasons which reason can never understand. And this is so beautiful because, of course, this kind of encounter is intuitive, just like art and just like conscience and just like love. It's intuitive. It comes in the real meeting, in the real experience of meeting courageously with one another. And of course, therefore, it is immediate, and it doesn't need any kind of preparation. It needs courage, but then it suddenly surprises you as a moment of grace, and it happens. And of course, then it is great intimacy that is opened in that unity and wholeness. And it is an intimacy that you can never find in another way. Even romantic love is not that intimate as spiritual love, I dare to say. And of course, it can go together. That would be the most fantastic relationship if it goes together. And of course, it has to be mutual. It's mutuality that it always happens. What happened to my, I lost it somehow. Let me see, my mouse, wait, I'll start again. I don't know what happened. Wait.
The time is 1 past quarter. Maybe that's why the system.
I see. I suddenly, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I somehow mistook in my mind it was until 7:45. So I'm sorry, I mistook it. But how do I come? Well, actually, it's never mind. I don't have to finish the characteristics. I just, if we have 1 minute, I just want to end by a small story that once a student asked me, so in authentic relationship, what do the two parties, what would they do? Would they just meditate together? What would they do together? And I answered him, it does not matter what they do together. They can talk, they can eat, they can walk. It doesn't matter what they do as long as it comes from the right place. And therefore, I want to end my presentation by saying, by quoting just 3 sentences of the philosopher Chuang Tse, who says, meaning is captured by words. But once you have captured the meaning, you can forget the words. And I wish I could meet a person who had forgotten the words so that I can have a beautiful conversation with him. Thank you very much for attending this session.
Thank you.
Let me see if people are still here and with the chat.
And one question is it is the case someone wanted to type in. I just wanted to point out that this is collaborative session. Okay, this is not. First, Michael Winters. Can an IDOC encounter with a tree, with a free be transcendent? Is the encounter love? Please discuss how each Frankl and Buber would approach these questions.
The question
is,
yeah,
can an IDAO encounter with a
free, yeah,
with a tree, a free be transcendent? Is the encounter love? That's the question. That's one. Yes, I think that's all.
Of course, because then I transcend myself. I transcend my encapsulated self, and I become one, so to speak, with the tree, because it's the force of life that runs inside of us, both, of course. Yeah. Was there another question?
So you can turn on your microphone and ask. Is it possible? I don't know.
Yes.
That will be more convenient.
Yeah, if you're still here, you can do that. Yes. Someone wrote in Spanish that I don't understand.
Andreas Schreiber. Andreas is a very good philosopher from Germany.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, he said very inspiring.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Yes.
I'm sorry, I can translate it for what Clara Martinez, she put in Spanish. She said, hello, what is possible if we can have that together for more technique like it is encouraged?
Together, that we can be together more.
For more technique, what you have it today, how is possible?
How it would be possible? I think it's like what Frankl was saying, that it's a wisdom. It's a question of wisdom to do it. When you are really in true listening, you would have the wisdom to not fall into technique, or rather than to use the right technique at the very right moment that it needs to be.
Clara Martínez, saludos desde aquí a Atlanta, Georgia. Jaime te saluda. Está diciendo la doctora de que lo que es la inspiración del espíritu lo que mueve, y no hay una técnica en ese momento, sino es dentro del espíritu que es lo que mueve a ese encuentro.
Can you translate?
Desmutea, desmute.
Sí, es una, sí, como no hay hello Spanish, como es no hay una técnica para el encuentro, lo que podemos hacer es disposición al encuentro.
What she said is not a technique for this moment. What we have to have is the position at the time for this moment. Ajá, continúa. Doctora Clara, continúe. Doctor Clara, you can continue.
Es decir, no es posible la técnica, pero la disposición es totalmente intencional, o es posible solamente ser y nada más. Ahí termino.
Well, what she's trying to prove is if at that moment, if the technique is not in there, and the spirit, the inspiration, how you say, Dr. Dida, is the intentional for the moment, it is only to be in there and the thing is going to happen, or something else is going to motivate what happened.
Well, when you are totally present, what happens will happen, and you will be open to whatever happens, and as long as you are courageous, you are going to follow what happens, right?
En el momento lo que sucede es ese momento tan especial donde sucede y donde las cosas se dan y no hay nada diferente de lo que se pueda tener.
Thank you very much, Jaime. Dida.
You're welcome. Thank
you.
Yes,
you're very welcome. Thank you very much. Yeah. I'm trying to see what John has written. I couldn't see it. The very fact that you're all here makes me very glad. It means that you are interested in the subject. Great. So did anybody see exactly what John has written? Or you can open your microphone, John, and just say it.
I'm just responding to Janita's comment.
Okay.
Which was rather lengthy, but I think it should be addressed.
Okay.
I can put that on the table. What I was thinking about, as someone who's really interested in Buber and Frankl, I just so appreciated your talk. One of the things I appreciated, which I didn't put in the comment, was your recognition that the modality of I-it and the modality of existential distress or a vacuum are both normal. They are a mode of being human in the world, and they're a reminder of the possibilities that we're not only a reduction in the world, that we are always in the modes of authenticity and inauthenticity. So thank you for that. My comment in the chat, though, was, as I've wrestled myself with where Buber and Frankl are not in agreement, is that I think your quote that in the beginning is the relation, or in the beginning is the connection, was the way you translated it. I think is an ontological claim for Buber that is different than Frankl. I think Frankl seems to be in a tradition in which the single one, the unique one, is not ontologically in relation, but has the possibility of transcending into relation. As a facet of his ontology. And I think, that's where the philosophers of Buber, I think, take his claim that we are fundamentally in relation. That is the nature of our being. We never stand alone. It might be a subtle distinction as we think about how these philosophers agreed and disagreed with some ontological claims. And that, I think, is what John was responding to, was my musing on that. Okay. You may have some thoughts on that. Thank you for the presentation.
We can always continue with the dialogue whenever later. But I would say that thinking deeply about Frankl and what he criticized, quote unquote, Buber about that, I was thinking that, you are right, that actually we have that possibility of self-transcendence, but we are not always there. When we are psyche to psyche, that doesn't mean that we are really in the dimension of meaning. So one has that possibility to self-transcend, but it is our nature as a self-transcendent human being. We have the nature of always reaching out towards someone loved, or towards a mission greater than ourselves. So therefore, I had the feeling that they are actually saying the same. We have that possibility for Frankl, although we are not always there. But I noted that the three ways of finding meaning in love, they all have to do with self-transcendence, actually, right? And for Buber, it is inbuilt in us. The first comes the relation, and then comes the object that we want to relate to. And with Frankl, it is that the will to meaning comes first, but the will to meaning has to do with either a loved one or a mission. So it always, that self-transcendence is just the spiritual dimension, and in that they coincide, I think. Professor David Gutman has written a beautiful article about Martin Buber and the relation to Frankl. And then he says that both talk about the spiritual dimension that actually is the same for both of them. And therefore I found that he kind of agreed with the contention of mine that I tried to put on here. Anybody else, or you want to hurry to the next sessions, or what?
I just wrote a comment about isolation.
Yeah.
And then Mike Winters spoke about Sartre.
Who is talking? I can't see. Wait.
I wrote a comment. This is John.
Okay. Yes, and can you say the comment? Because when I go to the chat, I don't see it.
I said, however, let's not forget that certain existentialists like Yalom argue that human beings are ontologically isolated, and that an I-thou encounter is an ideal that can never be actually.
I'm not sure I heard you well, but when you said some existentialists, perhaps you meant the secular existentialist, and then it's then it's altogether a different story. That's why I didn't want to get into them, because some people do not make that distinction between secular and religious existentialism, and it's very, very different. I mean, some people put together in the same salad Frankl and what's his name with the myth of Sisyphus?
Camus.
Camus, yeah, exactly, Albert Camus. And I cannot bear to hear that, because Frankl would never agree with him. And some people do not understand that distinction between secular and religious existentialism. That's why I didn't put it in at all. But of course, this self-transcending quality that makes it all that life is meaningful, because life is, as you know, for Frankl, is always meaningful, even in the worst circumstances. And about this encapsulation, I must say that somewhere Frankl says, in other places, he says he doesn't always say the names of with whom he's dialoguing, but as a philosopher, as well as logotherapist, of course, but as a philosopher, I know how to read between the lines to whom he's talking to. So he says we are not monads with closed windows. And by that he means, look in the books, by that he means, to quote Leibniz, who said we are monads with no windows. And I can suppose that Frankl was totally shocked by this saying. So the notion of encounter and what Buber talks about, the falling of the encapsulation, fits perfectly with what Frankl is saying in terms of Leibniz, that we are no monads. Monad means the small entity. So we are not really separated. We are not really small entities, okay?
Thank you.
We are a part of a much greater unity and wholeness. Anybody else? I enjoy it if we go on.
I have one question.
Yes, great.
Yeah, for Buber, is an energetic field is a kind of a metaphysical construct he presupposes?
Do I suppose that it's a metaphysical?
No, you in your presentation,
yes,
you mentioned that Buber presuppose the energetic field.
Yes.
My question is it a kind of a metaphysical construct he presupposes?
Well, I think...
Yeah, because the question is more like an approach between Frankl and Buber. And Frankl takes more, real phenomenological approach. So my question is, does Buber presuppose that kind of energetic field as a kind of a metaphysical construct and a being there? And is that what he presupposes?
Well, I cannot answer that. I don't know if it's a metaphysical construction of his thoughts, of his thinking, because he was mostly intuitively speaking, just like Frankl, as we said before. So I don't know whether it's a metaphysical construct made by his thoughts, but it was his philosophy of life, you can say. And I guess that he had experienced that, because he talks about his relationship to, I didn't have time to go into it, but he talks about his relationship to being religious, what it means to him to be religious. And in the beginning, he mostly is described as a religious thinker. When Frankl tried to hide it more, apart from the book, The Unconscious God. But he actually says that more and more he realized that religion is not out there, having ecstatic experiences like he had in the beginning, And I think from these ecstatic experiences or mystical experiences, he understood or he experienced that energetic field. I think that's my feeling. But then later, he says something very important for us because it resembles Frankl. He says, I understood that talking about religion is not up somewhere there, but it's living one moment to the other, and to be responsible in each one moment. And therefore, he says, life is to be called, and we are responsible to answer, like Frankl talks about it. I don't know whether Frankl really took it from Buber, but they were in the same spirit of the time, in the zeitgeist, yes? So he says, in the beginning, he had these mystical experiences, and I guess this energetical field, he felt it to encompass all existence, to be one. But later on, he understood that to be religious means to live every moment to its fullness with full presence, okay? And there is another thing that resembles between them, that I suddenly lost my thread of thinking. I'm happy to see my friend Chaya Hovitz here, so I was my attention went there. There is another thing that they are really resembling in their relation to God and to responsibility. I think it will come to me in a second. But did you understand my question? That it comes, I think, not as a construct of thinking, of thought, a metaphysical concept, but I think it comes from his experiences in his youth of ecstatic, mystical experiences. Yeah. I also think that Frankl talks from experience, when he talks about basic trust in life. I think he talks from experience when he was even 4 years old and he felt his father near his bed, when he suddenly, in the middle of the night, realized that also he would die one day, and he was thinking about death, and suddenly he felt complete quietness in himself, and then he discovered that his father was standing near his bed there. So I think, always the personal relates to the life view of a philosopher, I guess. There is a beautiful book called Philosophers as Human Beings. I recommend that to you to look for it. It's an Israeli philosopher called Sharfstein, he got the Israel Prize once, and he's now, I believe, 101 or something like that. He was one of my mentors for the doctorate.
Hi, Dida. Can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
We are over time. The other sessions have already started, and so
Yeah.
I could ask you to kind of conclude things, and we'll go on with other sessions. But please, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but if you have other questions, please feel free to send them and connect with Dida later on.
Yeah, of course. I don't mind you interrupting. Of course not. I actually thank you, but I am very glad to see. I cannot see in full view who is there. Maybe I can. So yeah, I can't see everyone, but still, I am actually very indebted to you and very thankful to you, that it means that you are really interested, that you're still here, because I see we still have 16 participants, and I know that the other sessions have started. But I personally, I'm not going to any session until I don't know what the time in your timing zone is, but I believe it is 1:30 in the States. For me, it is 9:30 in the evening, because I have to open the plenary of Mr. Gidon Milul,
yes.
And then I have to have a speech there, an opening speech there of quarter of an hour, to introduce him and his late wife. And please all come there, because it's going to be very beautiful, that I'm going to surprise Gideon there with a video of Dr. Barnes. He doesn't know that. So that will be very touching for all of us to see Dr. Barnes again.
Very good. Well, we will see you all then. And I would encourage you, please connect with Dida. And we have several ways of doing that, setting an appointment or sending a message. And because that's what this is about, connection and building bridges of connection. And so, again, thank you, Dida. And we'll see you all around the conference.
Yeah, exactly. And so see you all in the immediate time of 1:30 American time, and at least set American, and 9:30 in Israeli time. And thank you, David. Thank you, Toda. And it was great for me to share with you, and thank you so much. And thank you for staying so long. It is really appreciated by me. Great. And we can always connect. You have my email on the presentation, so when you get the recording you will see the email, and of course in the event, of course you have my bio and my email there. Okay.
Thank you.